All right, the next thing I'm going to show you guys today is how to use Code Interpreter. You need to pay for a $20 subscription to ChatGPT to have access to this. And the moment you do, you're going to change your entire life. You're like, okay, how so? Well, let's dive into it. Let's go here to GPT. Let's go to plugins. Let's activate the internet. Look up YouTube videos on how to use Code Interpreter in business. Highlight the top ways people are already using it. This will help give you some ideas. So what this is going to do is this is going to use one of the plugins. Box will search YouTube videos and it will look at the transcripts for you and it will pull that data. See, look, complete tutorial, including prompt list. GPT's new code interpreter shocks everyone. Upload files, edit videos, examples, full guide. Big news in AI business, code interpreter for business. And here's the sad part. This one right here has a lot of views, which is good. This one has a lot of views, which is good. These two don't have a ton. Ultimate tutorial for beginners. So these are all things, highlight ways people are already using code interpreter. Please review these transcripts. And identify similarities. What would I call them? Identify inclusives and supply us with the top 20% of those options. So now I went to the link. It pulled a chunk of the transcript. So it's not going to pull everything. Went and pulled another chunk. And now it's down here pulling more. See? Let's see what we actually get from this. It's not pulling everything, as you can see. It's actually taking only a portion of the transcript, which can be detrimental. There's ways around this. I can show you how to do that. Here you go. Code Interpreter can analyze data from CSV files. These are any type of file that you have, just a particular format like an Excel sheet, providing insights that may not be immediately apparent. It can identify trends, correlations, and even recommend future actions based on the data. And I feel like, well, what does that mean? I'm like, give it a lead list of leads you've had, give it a list of financials you've had, give it your taxes, and say, hey, let's look for ways to solve this. Let's look for tax credits based off of XYZ. And you can upload PDFs from previous tax years and it can interpret it. It can run through the whole thing. File conversion. Code Interpreter can convert files from one format to another. That I didn't know. That's a paid service that people charge you a ton for. Gosh dang it. But I did run into issues with that. So that wouldn't work for one of the things I did. Video editing. Code Interpreter can perform simple video editing tasks, such as adding slow zoom effect on a video. You're like, how does it do that? I'm like, yeah, right. Automation of tasks. What? It can automate tasks that you'd rather be time consuming. For example, it can clean data, merge images, and even write code. This can help businesses save time and resources. This is great for a development team. It'll speed up your process. No, it's not as good as a developer, but all you high and fancy people that think things never catch up to you, one thing I learned very clearly from the Heath brothers, they wrote a book called Decisive. They've written several. They're behavioral economists, and I think one teaches at Brown or Duke. I can't remember. But they made it very clear that you never, ever ask an expert for how things will turn out. Experts are morons at predicting the future. Always ask an expert, how did this behave in the past? If you're dealing with an entirely new phenomenon, your brain is naturally going to try and put it in a box you're familiar with. For instance, cryptocurrency. People naturally try to put it in the box of stocks. Or if you develop an entirely new fiduciary tool like the debt box did, which is essentially a cryptocurrency supported by revenue from real businesses, that doesn't exist. There is no stock like that. There's no debt like that. There's no investment like that. And you can't even call this any of those things. but yet people naturally move and gravitate towards things they understand. This is a classic thing in behavioral economics. It's like, for instance, if you ask a person, why do you invest in Coca-Cola? Honestly, they're going to answer the question to the best of their ability, but it's not going to be the actual question they're answering most of the time. It's going to be, well, it's because I like Coke, because that's the actual answer, which is disturbing. Um, Interactive 3D mapping. Code Interpreter can create interactive 3D maps, which can be useful for business to visualize spatial data. Face and object detection. Code Interpreter can perform face object detection tasks, which can be useful for businesses in sectors like security, retail, or more. It can create QR codes. These are just a few of the things it can do. Like, I mean, a very small amount. And you're like, well, let's do specific examples. I'm like, well, then click on one of these links and go through it and learn a little bit. I'm here to teach people how to learn. I'm not here to do everything for you, because I think it's more useful to learn that way. But if you're innately someone that struggles with those types of things, then I would go to these sites and see what some of their options are and learn from some of these links. But going down through this, these are just some examples of Code Interpreter. And I've used it in a variety of ways. But let's go in here really quick. And I'm actually going to do something I'm going to pause this. We're going to go ahead and show you something very novel here, okay? I'm going to try something. I have no idea if this is going to work, but let's see what it can do. I'm going to pull up a document. This is taken from a presentation given at the Royal Society. I've got to find the original PDF here. I just had it. Here it is. This was taken from the Royal Society. It was a presentation given by a gentleman named Dr. Martin Teicher back in 2017. And it's about childhood adverse experiences. Let's give you a look at it. This shows development in the brain. Child abuse leads to actually all of these disorders. And then he goes on to say that all these disorders are actually the result of brain morphology changes based off of the different types of abuse, neglect, adverse childhood experiences people experience as they grow up. You have different age ranges here that it's showing that, for instance, this person's sensitive period in females, girls, physical abuse around the age of 6, it tends to peak, meaning the corpus callosum connects your left and right hemisphere, tends to shrink or not grow correctly. Nonverbal emotional abuse, ages 9 to 10, and then it peaks a lot at the age of 15. Girls tend to be very sensitive around those ages, it appears, and I would say that has a lot to do with peer development and how girls' brains operate. There's also a lot of sensitivity in those periods with the VMPFC. What does this lead to ultimately? It leads to asynchronicity in the left and right hemispheres. If you evoke a strong emotional response in these people, you're going to see that the traumatized victim is going to have a very strong activation of the left hemisphere when they are not, how do you put it? When they're not being even triggered. And then when they're heavily triggered in a state of trauma, the unpleasant memory, you'll see that the left hemisphere virtually shuts off. And then the right hemisphere goes into hardcore. What this illustrates is not a good integration of the individual as a whole entity. This is actually quite disturbing data when you think about it, because it shows that these people are acting somewhat like children, but they have no idea because their left hemisphere is offline. So your language cortex is not really a part of your executive function. It's just a part of your brain that talks for you. And when your frontal cortex goes offline, i.e. you're in a state of stress, then you just start to flip out. Anyways, there's a lot of stuff here. So it's like, let's see if we can unpack this, okay? So here's how we're gonna do this. We're gonna go right here. We are going to select Code Interpreter, okay? And then we're gonna take that file from right here, and we're going to upload it here, okay? Ta-da! Please create a spreadsheet that could be used with the ACE survey to determine potential changes in brain morphology as a result of adversity in neural development. See what it does. So this will give you an idea. If unfortunately it's an AI model, then I don't have the ability to directly read or extract information. However, I can help you. That's cool. See, this is some of the times. Remember, this is in beta. Please review the PDF. Watch this. You overwrite it. So this is something you need to think about. This is really neat because if you're thinking about neuroscience here, this is beautiful. It can do this, but it doesn't know it can. It's kind of like the elephant as a baby that's tied up to a rope. Its very first learning was that it didn't have these skills. And now, as an adult AI, it isn't really aware all the time of the things it can do. So you have to point them out to it and remind it. You have to prime it. It actually is. Okay, we're going to fight with you. There you go. Son of a bit. See? It's doing the PDF file now. See, it even argued with me again. It told me it couldn't do it. I love this. This is where people get lost. Is like, well, it doesn't do these things. It's broken. I'm like, no, it's just like a human. It doesn't realize how awesome it is. Look at that. Dr. Martin Teicher, PhD, Department of Psychiatry, biopsychiatry is his, I believe, his emphasis in pediatric development. Like there's different terminology utilized there, and I don't want to misillustrate. But extract from text, we have some important points. Use this information, expand on the initial spreadsheet. Dude, I did this myself the other day, and it took me a freaking day. And I know this stuff. I researched it for like 2 years. And it's like, you can get pissed that technology is outsourcing everything you do, or you can learn new skills and stay relevant. I picked the latter. Sorry, I plugged my computer in. But no, this is neat, right? This is like, holy cow, this is cool. And you're like, well, how cool is it? Watch this. Please build it. Boom, code interpreter right here. Look at that. And do you know how to do code? Doesn't matter. Look at that. Okay. Please populate the. Please provide the questions. Questions needed to populate the Excel sheet. Provide different. Well, let's see what it does first. So this just gives you some ideas of things you can do with data. Now let's actually take a step back here, and we're going to do another. Okay, we're going to go up here to Code Interpreter. We're going to start over. I'm going to pause this. Other things you could do, for instance, you could do a lot of your lending documents in here. If you're a merchant solution provider, like say you own a merchant processor, you could actually flatten out, extract all of the different rates for like Amex, MasterCard, Visa, and you could plug these all in against a current account's sheets, and then it will create a summary showing what rates they're paying. And then if we can compare it against what they say they're paying, you could immediately reveal hidden fees that a merchant solution providers put into their account, which happens frequently, unfortunately. There's a lot of miscommunication there because it's really easy to hide fees in and make it look like what people are paying is one thing when really they're actually paying another. And this is really useful because if you're a company that is working with anybody in this space to provide payment, essentially, you're getting payments accepted for your clothing or for your coaching or for other services you provide, you're going through a provider. You might initially go through someone like Stripe. But if you're doing over $5,000 a month in revenue, you're going to want to move away from Stripe or Square to a more competitive offering from a private provider, because the private banks can do a lot more work. Now, it will require upfront diligence. It's not as easy to sign up for Stripe, but it does provide a lot of value. And knowing what you're paying versus what they tell you you're paying will allow you to argue with them and to bring your rates down. And if you're actually a provider, it will allow you the ability to go into a situation and undermine the competition for unethical business practices. So that's just something to think about. But going in here, what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to do something that applies to a lot of people. I'm going to say that I'm going to take the CSV file. This is for leads. Essentially, these are downloaded off of HubSpot. And I'm just going to analyze this data and look for trends. See what it does. Look at this. Let's try reading the file again for potential issues and for the correct format. There you go. I got it right this time. So these are some of the data files. This is not the whole data set here, but you can go through and do a lot more analysis, and it can actually do a lot of value here for you. Let's actually load another file here. Oh, it's doing stuff. Crap. So it's adjusting things. It actually starts to auto-correct and better understand the data. So these are things that'll work through for you. And yeah, this is very valuable. If there's anything you want shown in particular, you're more than willing to go ahead and reach out to me, and I will happily provide it. And the more of these I do, of course, I will try to make them shorter videos for very specific applications. And I'm going to do another one after this. It's a very specific application. Seems like there's different data set, and I actually understood the data. See, it's just going to keep going. 197 columns. It's not feasible to analyze all of them at once. Can you specify which ones? That's true. HubSpot is a pain. They give you way too much data and analysis by paralysis. But we're going to stop here for now, and we're going to go to the next video.